How big did a car have to be before it stopped feeling like an automobile and started feeling like a private lounge on wheels? In the 1960s, the United States took the concept of luxury to a completely different scale. Endless hoods, bodies stretching more than 18 feet long, enormous interiors, V8 engines capable of moving tons of steel with absolute smoothness. Today, we're going to discover the most elegant American land yachts of the 1960s. Gigantic, refined cars created in an era when nobody seemed concerned about saving space. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and get ready, because we're starting with one of the most elegant American automobiles ever designed. 1965 Lincoln Continental. This Lincoln achieved something that very few cars of its size could accomplish. It was almost 18 feet long, carried an enormous V8 under the hood, and had a commanding presence on any street. And yet, it looked elegant rather than excessive. The Continental represented a very particular idea of American luxury. While many brands relied on chrome, ornaments, and increasingly dramatic shapes, Lincoln chose much cleaner lines. The body was long and low, the sides were almost completely straight, and practically every element seemed positioned to reinforce a sense of balance. But its most famous feature was found in the rear doors. The famous suicide doors, which opened in the opposite direction, not only made it easier to access the enormous cabin, they also transformed every arrival into something almost ceremonial. Opening all four doors of a Continental was enough to understand that this was no ordinary sedan. Inside, the space was enormous, with large seats, extensive sound insulation, and a driving experience designed more for gliding than for feeling the road. It was exactly the experience you would expect from a true land yacht. Under the hood was a 430 cubic inch V8, approximately 7 liters, producing around 320 horsepower. But the numbers tell only part of the story. This engine wasn't designed to turn the Continental into a sports car. Its job was to move all the mass smoothly, using its enormous torque to accelerate effortlessly and maintain highway speeds, while the passengers remained practically isolated from the outside world. The 1965 model also has a special charm because it was the final year of that original Continental generation, introduced in 1961, before Lincoln extensively redesigned the car for 1966. That made it the final expression of a formula that had completely transformed the brand's image. Today, depending on the body style and condition, a 1965 Continental can be worth approximately between $25,000 and $60,000, while exceptional convertibles can sell for considerably more. 1966 Cadillac Fleetwood. If the Continental represented modern, minimalist elegance, this Cadillac followed a completely different philosophy. The Fleetwood wanted everyone around it to immediately understand that they were looking at one of the most prestigious automobiles in Detroit. It was enormous, formal, and deeply American. Its design used straighter lines than the extravagant Cadillacs of the late 1950s. The large tail fins had practically disappeared, making way for a long, low, and much more mature body. The vertical headlights emphasized the height of the front end, while the enormous hood seemed to stretch several yards ahead of the driver. But the real appeal was in the experience. In 1966, Cadillac introduced the Fleetwood Brougham trim, which was even more sophisticated than the conventional 60 Special. The interior could offer refined materials, abundant space, power controls, and a level of insulation designed to turn every journey into a completely relaxing experience. The Brougham was immediately popular within the most exclusive end of the lineup. Cadillac produced 13,630 units of this version in its first year. Under the hood was an enormous 429 cubic inch V8, approximately 7 liters, producing 340 horsepower, combined with the turbo-hydromatic automatic transmission. But once again, the power wasn't there to turn it into a sports car. It was there to make the weight disappear. Today, the market value of a 1966 Fleetwood 60 Special sits at around $23,000, although the best Broughams can reach approximately $40,000 to $55,000, depending on preservation, originality, and restoration. 1969 Imperial LeBaron. This car didn't try to look small, light, or discreet. It completely embraced its size. At nearly 19.2 feet long, it was one of the largest production automobiles you could buy in the United States without entering directly into limousine territory. 1969 also marked an important change for Imperial. The brand abandoned the more angular shapes of previous years and adopted Chrysler's new fuselage design, with a more rounded and visually integrated body. The result was enormous, but surprisingly clean. The grille occupied practically the entire front end and concealed the headlights when they were turned off, creating a continuous and elegant appearance. The hood seemed endless, while the formal roofline and LeBaron trim reinforced its position as the most prestigious version of the Imperial lineup. And there is an important historical detail. At the time, Imperial was marketed as a separate brand, not simply as a more expensive Chrysler. The intention was to compete directly against Cadillac and Lincoln, offering an equally prestigious experience, but one that was far less common. Inside, the space matched its dimensions. Large seats, refined materials, abundant power equipment, and a suspension designed to isolate the occupants turned every journey into the classic experience of a true land yacht. Under the hood was an enormous 440 cubic inch, 7.2-liter V8, producing 350 horsepower, combined with a 3-speed Torque-a-Flight automatic transmission. Today, these Imperials remain surprisingly affordable compared to equivalent Cadillacs and Lincolns. Hagerty values a 1969 LeBaron Coupe in good condition at around $9,000, although especially original and well-preserved examples can reach considerably higher figures. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, so far, which one best represents your idea of a true American land yacht? The clean design of the Lincoln Continental, the prestige of the Cadillac Fleetwood, or the almost absurd size of this Imperial LeBaron? Leave your answer in the comments. 1969 Buick Electra 225. This Buick had a name that practically served as a warning about its size. Electra 225. The number was historically associated with its approximately 225-inch length, and the 1969 model maintained that tradition at no less than 224.8 inches from end to end. But it didn't stand out simply because it occupied an absurd amount of space. It was one of the best examples of how Buick interpreted the concept of a land yacht. More relaxed than a Cadillac, less formal than an Imperial, but equally designed for traveling in absolute comfort. For 1969, Buick completely redesigned the Electra, abandoning some of the boxier shapes of previous years in favor of a more flowing and elegant body. The enormous hood, clean side profile, and long rear end created a silhouette that seemed to stretch endlessly across the road. Especially in the hardtop versions, the visual absence of a center pillar made all the length look even cleaner. Inside, the philosophy was simple: space for everyone and effort for no one. Large seats, refined finishes, abundant power equipment, and a comfort-oriented suspension turned the Electra into the kind of automobile designed to travel hundreds of miles without tiring its occupants. And moving a car of these dimensions required something equally large. Under the hood was a 430 cubic inch, approximately 7-liter V8, producing 360 horsepower, paired with a turbo-hydromatic automatic transmission. It could even be equipped with front disc brakes, an especially welcome option in an automobile of this size and weight. Today, Hagerty values a 1969 Electra 225 in good condition at around $9,000, although especially well-preserved examples are listed for considerably higher prices. 1968 Chrysler New Yorker. This Chrysler didn't need to wear a Cadillac badge to feel important. It represented a more understated form of American luxury. Enormous, comfortable, and sophisticated, but without trying to turn every detail of the body into a display of wealth. It was the final year of a generation, characterized by straight lines and monumental proportions, just before Chrysler adopted its famous fuselage design in 1969. Its enormous hood, clean sides, and formal roofline gave it a serious and very elegant presence. In hardtop form especially, that entire body seemed even longer, and that was precisely its charm. The New Yorker was designed for people who wanted to travel for hours while practically forgetting about the road. Power steering, power brakes, and an automatic transmission were all part of its focus on comfort, while features such as air conditioning, cruise control, power windows, power seats, and leather upholstery could also be added. It was less ceremonial than an Imperial, but also less pretentious. A true land yacht for someone who simply wanted space, silence, and comfort. Under the hood was the enormous 440 cubic inch, 7.2-liter V8, producing around 350 horsepower, paired with the famous Torque Flight 727 automatic transmission. More important than maximum horsepower was the enormous amount of torque available, which allowed it to move that massive body with the effortless ease expected from a large Chrysler. Today, it remains one of the most affordable great land yachts of the 1960s. Hagerty values a 1968 example in good condition at around $16,000, with some hardtop configurations valued at approximately $15,000 to $20,000, although exceptional cars can reach much higher figures. 1967. Oldsmobile 98 Holiday. This Oldsmobile proves that a land yacht didn't need 4 doors to feel enormous. The 98 was the model that sat at the top of the Oldsmobile lineup. But in this hardtop version, it managed to combine its monumental dimensions with a surprisingly elegant silhouette. The key was in the design. Without a visible center pillar, the roof seemed to float above the body. With all the windows down, the profile became completely open and clean, making that enormous car look much lighter than it really was. Oldsmobile also occupied an interesting position within General Motors. It didn't have the ultimate prestige of Cadillac, but it offered practically everything a luxury buyer could need at a somewhat more reasonable price. The interior offered enormous sofa-like seats, abundant space, and a driving experience completely focused on comfort. Equipment such as air conditioning, power windows, and power-adjustable seats could turn it into a true private lounge for traveling across America's endless highways. Under the hood was a 425 cubic inch V8 producing around 365 horsepower. Today, a well-preserved 1967 98 Holiday can be found for approximately $20,000 to $40,000, while exceptional and highly original examples can exceed that figure. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, of all the land yachts we've seen so far, which one has the most elegant silhouette to you? The Buick Electra, the Chrysler New Yorker, or this enormous Oldsmobile Holiday? Because the next car proves that even Pontiac, a brand normally associated with a sportier image, knew how to build a true luxury lounge on wheels. 1967. Pontiac Bonneville Brougham. Pontiac was a brand that many people associated with power and a more youthful image. But this car proved that it also knew how to build a true land yacht. In 4-door hardtop form, it could exceed 18.5 feet in length, with a 124-inch wheelbase. However, its design managed to hide some of those dimensions thanks to a low body, flowing lines, and an enormous glass area that gave it a much lighter appearance. The Bonneville sat at the top of the Pontiac lineup, and the Brougham treatment reinforced precisely its more refined side. Here, the philosophy wasn't to copy Cadillac's formality. It was to offer American luxury with a little more personality. The interior had more than enough space, large seats, and an atmosphere designed for covering long distances in complete comfort. With the windows down on the hardtop versions, the enormous cabin seemed completely open, creating that elegant and relaxed appearance that few modern sedans could ever reproduce. But it was still a Pontiac, and that meant that beneath all that comfort, there was also plenty of power. The main engine was a 400 cubic inch VI8, while those who wanted something even more absurd could order the enormous 428 V8, available in different configurations and capable of producing up to approximately 390 horsepower. It was a fascinating combination. Today, a well-preserved 1967 Bonneville can usually be found for approximately $15,000 to $35,000, depending on body style, engine, and condition. Recent references include examples offered at around $18,500 and $26,900, as well as one sale for $32,000. 1969 Lincoln Continental Mark III. This Lincoln took the idea of a land yacht into a different territory. It wasn't a large sedan designed to carry important passengers. It was an enormous luxury coupe designed to make its owner the center of attention. It was created to compete directly in the growing personal luxury car market. Its formula combined the Ford Thunderbird platform with a much more aristocratic and exclusive image. And visually, it was impossible to mistake for anything else. The hood seemed endless. The enormous vertical grille deliberately recalled the great European luxury automobiles, while the headlights remained hidden behind panels when they were turned off. At the rear, the simulated spare tire cover became another of its most recognizable features. Everything was designed to convey prestige, but also size. At approximately 18 feet long and weighing more than 2 tons, the Mark III had all the proportions of a true land yacht, despite having only 2 doors. Inside, the experience was more intimate than in a Fleetwood or an Imperial. Large seats, refined materials, abundant insulation, and an enormous list of comfort features transformed the Mark III into a kind of private club on wheels. Today, an example in good condition can be found for around $10,000 to $20,000, although exceptionally well-preserved cars can reach much higher figures. Recent sales of the best examples have exceeded $50,000. 1965 Dodge Monaco. This Dodge proves that a true land yacht didn't need to belong to Cadillac, Lincoln, or Imperial. In 1965, the Monaco name appeared for the first time as Dodge's new flagship model. And during that first year, it was offered exclusively as a large 2-door hardtop, aimed at buyers who wanted to combine the size of an American full-size car with a more elegant and exclusive image. It didn't have the formality of the Cadillac Fleetwood or the aristocratic image of the Imperial LeBaron. The Monaco was different. It had a more relaxed, almost sporty elegance, while still being an enormous American automobile designed to cover long distances in comfort. The interior reinforced its position as the top model. The idea was to offer a more exclusive experience than conventional Dodge models, placing the Monaco in a territory where luxury and personality could coexist without turning it into a traditional limousine. And there was no shortage of character under the hood either. The standard engine was a 383 cubic inch, approximately 6.3-liter V8 producing 315 horsepower, which could reach 330 horsepower in certain configurations. It wasn't a sports car, but it wasn't a completely sleepy land yacht either. Approximately 13,200 units were produced during that first year, before the Monaco name expanded into a complete model range in 1966. That gives the 1965 model an especially interesting personality. It was the original Monaco, when the name still exclusively identified the brand's large flagship coupe. Today it remains relatively affordable for a full-size classic from this period. Hagerty values an example in good condition at around $14,000 to $17,000. And in the end, these cars prove that in the 1960s, the United States turned size into a form of elegance. But behind all that steel was something that many modern cars simply no longer offer: the feeling of traveling isolated from the world, with more than enough space and a presence impossible to ignore. Now, I want to know your opinion. Which of these American giants do you think is the most elegant of them all? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you like the most exclusive American classics, watch our video about the most expensive American cars of the 1950s. See you there.